Good afternoon, everyone. As we say in Africa, good afternoon. Tere! You return. So this is how we do things in Africa. I was 3 weeks back in Nairobi, and everybody responds. When you say hi, everyone says hi.
You say jumbo.
Jumbo.
Jumbo sana. Yes.
So we jump right away. The last session was on Renaissance, by the way. So Renaissance, everyone knows, is 15th, 16th century. So we tried to jump to postmodernism, I think, in here. Some of the organizational remarks was that people at the back, you're welcomed in here, you're welcomed at the table, and I was supposed to say that I will put the questions to the back rows first. So if you want to escape the questions, come down, but there is an application. I should bring my tablet also with me, and you can put the people in online, and in the room you are encouraged to actually put questions, so we can co-create this session together. Okay, so I will shy away from introducing the whole panel. I suppose you will do that yourself.
Sure.
The discussion is, of course, very important. It's the buzzword of every digital conference and every conference these days, I think. And I don't think we will come to a solution in this museum, and we will not shelve it, the AI to the museum. It's very hard to put back to the tube. But we will have to, of course, seek the way to start this journey, because we are in the middle of technological revolution. I think we are puzzled by what's going to happen. We have people in here from Estonia and from the two continents, Europe representing at this continental level. Of course, you have your passports, I suppose. So we will have at least 3 different views, more practical, more continental. How do we work? Where should we start? What is most important? I'm head of Estonian International Development Center. We support some of the work both in eastern part of Europe and also in Africa. We work closely also with Smart Africa, and happy to have. So despite the name Koné, you're not a Finn. I should say so to Estonians, but please.
Yes, my name is Lacina Koné, right? Koné in French, but the Kona in Finland, which means machine, right?
I think so, yes, machine in Finnish.
I'm not related to the elevator making machine.
Elevator pitch should come easily.
Yes. So I am the Director General CEO of Smart Africa, which is a Pan-African organization made of 41 countries, with the sole vision to transform Africa into a single digital market by 2030. Our head of the state are the board of directors. We have a meeting every year, and we have also AU, ITU, World Bank, EU, African Development Bank, all of these international development partners and institutions are also a member of Smart Africa to be able to assist each country as an accelerator and catalyzer to face the 4th industrial revolution, namely the emerging technologies.
Yeah. Thank you. Marika, go on.
Thank you, Klen. My name is Marika, and I actually come from the same entity that Klen is representing, which is the Estonian International...
It's her first week.
Yeah, I'm still working on it.
Estev, it's okay.
Estev. It's a development aid agency for Estonia, no matter what the official title is. But I'm actually in this panel today wearing 2 hats. One is that representing the Estonian Development Agency, but more importantly, whatever is written on my T-shirt, it says GovStack. I am the project lead for GovStack for Estonia, and GovStack literally is an interesting entity. It doesn't have a specific legal form, but it was set up a few years ago by Estonian and German governments, by ITU and Dial Alliance, with the primary aim of actually boosting the digitalization of public services worldwide with a very hands-on practical approach. GovStack essentially is built on building blocks, as one of the previous sessions on the main stage was also tackling on it in the context of how it fits into the DPI landscape, is that we come forward with these specifications, functional requirements descriptions called building blocks, which then any country worldwide willing to take on the journey of digitalizing its services can then use for its work, it's doing on those. But in addition to that, GovStack has much more to offer. In addition to the building blocks, it also provides sandbox for building POCs in a secure, trusted environment. It also provides counseling, support for the actual uptake of those building blocks, and it also provides opportunity for doing research and innovation together. So it's a very multifunctional entity. It's already collaborating with a set of countries, both in Europe, in Eastern Europe mostly, and also in the African continent. So yes, this is pretty much why I'm here today.
And as you see, despite what you are told in the Estonian National Museum, there are talkative Estonians. Peter.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Mariën. I work for DG INTPA in the European Commission, International Partnerships. A few years ago, the topic of digital became a priority for the European Commission, and so a unit was created, the unit in which I work, on digital transformation and science, technology, and innovation. And I am a team leader for digital governance and cybersecurity. And so basically we work with our partners around the world, including Koné and Smart Africa, on various aspects of digital transformation. So happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Peter. And this is the kind of closing the introduction round, but perhaps we start with you first. What are you working on currently? Because I've learned yesterday that finally the first ever AI law in the world, continent-wide at least, was adopted. So finally adopted. So we have a continent that has now an instrument. So what are you working on unlocking the AI for digital?
So now that that's done, our work is done. No, I'm kidding. No, and it's about AI. So I brought some paper here. So if you don't mind, I'll look at this. So maybe to frame again. So I work in international partnerships. We work with partner countries around the world to find mutually beneficial partnerships. We are policy driven, and of course, when we talk with our partner countries, we look at the EU track record and at the policy that we have in the EU. So a few years ago, we launched, or actually just more recently, the Global Gateway. You might have heard of the EU's Global Gateway.
Sure.
Intention is to invest quite large funds of money, 350 billion euro, around the world together with the private sector and the banks in different sectors, digital being one of the priority sectors. So we're looking at public and private cooperation in that context because, of course, without the private sector, there's doesn't make much sense. So on AI, no need to, of course, remind everybody this has huge social and economic potential, many use cases in the public and private sector. But then, of course, the question is, what is our role and our responsibility? What do we do, right? So maybe a word on that. And then a bit later, I'll also mention a more practical approach that has been initiated by DG Connect recently, another one of our DGs. So what is our responsibility? The way we see it is that we work on an enabling environment, which spurs innovation and AI uptake. So we are not in the business of creating AI applications ourselves or tools. I mean, DG INTPA. We have other DGs that do that, but we are more...
DG in Brussels speak is Directorate General, and INTPA means International Partnerships, so you also know the acronyms.
Yes.
Quite important, yes. Indeed, so thanks for that. So...
DG is not a DJ. Some people say that in my office. DJ INTPA.
No. So, okay, now, maybe back to basics. When we say what is our role, so the way that we see a role is to set up this enabling environment. But this enabling environment, and it was already mentioned earlier today, reflects our values and our stances. So of course, we within the EU, the AI Act, for example, was adopted. There are other important policy frameworks out there, such as on data privacy or data sharing. Or digital platform regulation, and so on, which all one way or another link to this. And so we like to use the word human-centric. So we have this human-centric approach to this enabling environment. Okay, so...
But from
Yes.
your walk of life, do you see that there is a demand for human-centric standards or human-centric way of things? As we in Europe tend to say that we have three big models. One is the US model of private companies owning the data and scaling on the basis of that, and there is the Chinese model of state-owned data and developing from there. Do you see that there is actually someone who wants to have in the rest of the world? I mean, in Europe we of course have it now, but is there someone who's buying this?
Sure. So, okay, I was going through some more things, but I'll try to get to this. Look, it depends how you approach it. If none of, I think, my colleagues will go out there and say, oh, look how good we are. Rather, look, we think that in our society we would like to have a trusted society, a trust in technology, in government, in society. We want to have transparency, accountability. We don't like hate speech. We don't like disinformation. We do like privacy. So if we can find like-minded people or people who also think that that is a good thing, then we're talking. And there are many countries that are proactively coming to us. When the AI, even long before the AI Act was adopted, many countries, I don't want to name them, but some are also here knocking on our door, trying to at least understand what could be interesting for them. Now, is it, but as you say, there are choices. And I was in an interesting meeting a few days ago, and Marika was also there in Paris, where we had the French ambassador on digital saying, what we're trying to do is to walk the path between big states and big tech. And if we can walk on that path, which is a difficult path, then maybe we're on the right path, right? But okay, I mean, it's his words, and he made it much more eloquently, but try to navigate a little bit between the two. So I hope that answers somehow how the question, but of course, we're not just selling technology or regulation, we're selling a philosophy, the wrong word. We're open to working together, advocating a certain philosophy, yes. So thanks, because this was one of my words that on the AI Act. Actually, the idea is to spur innovation by creating a trusted environment and a stable legal basis, which should attract innovation. Now, outside of the EU, we'll be a little bit more practical now on the Director General International Partnerships. So what do we do for the moment in the context of the enabling environment? Tell me if I'm running over time. A few examples. So we're having at the moment multiple exchanges with countries around the world. A few days ago, last week, there was the Digital Alliance discussion in Latin America with multiple Latin American countries, where we talk on policy, and then from the policy to future programs. We are also working on the enabling environment for AI, because of course, without data, without skills, there's not much you will do on AI. Same, of course, with secure connectivity, role of the regulator, and so on. So we have specific programs, also, for example, in Africa, on each of these things that I just mentioned. Regional programs, bilateral programs. Standards, we have cooperation with standard-setting bodies at multilateral level, at bilateral level, where we also work and will be working on elements related to AI. I won't go through all of them. We've set up in Europe the D4D hub, the Digital for Development hub. The idea is that EU member states work together there to have a shared approach, common approach outside of Europe. And in that hub, we also have an AI working group. We're working with yes, we are. We're also funding a little bit the UN Tech Envoy. And this person is also leading the high-level advisory body on AI. We have a program running with UNESCO, and UNESCO is supporting more than 16 countries on their AI framework, and also has a pool of technical experts that are available for those countries. So those are a few more things. We're also working on the Global Digital Compact. And then one more practical thing, and I'll come to a second point. Earth observation. European Union has the Copernicus system. It's the largest provider of free and open data in the world at the moment. Free and open for anybody to use. so data from satellites. And we have agreements with the Philippines, with Panama, with other countries for setting up data centers, download this data or use this data, and then actually work on that data, including skills related to AI. And I'm mentioning it because we were talking about public goods and AI, and so we're doing those things just to give you a flavor. Last thing, DG Connect, so Director General Connect, who are the real policy experts on technology, they have launched an AI innovation package in January of this year, and that's a 500 million euro package. The objective is to boost startup SMEs and cooperation within Europe for the uptake of AI, and that includes generative AI for public use, but also for private sector use. And for example, that's about acquiring supercomputers, access to supercomputers, support with algorithms, skills development, and setting up use cases, for example, in 14 different industries. And I'll stop there, and just to give a bit.
Thank you. I was told Peter had 17 pages of intervention, so that was a snippet of that. You see, Lacina, that we are a worried continent.
Yes.
Are you a continent that provides excitement for AI? I saw that yesterday. I took the opportunity to go visit your website. I saw that the strategy is still from 2021.
Yes.
So did you abandon the strategizing altogether and set the way of going for
No,
Africa?
we've done with the South Africa, because country membership within Smart Africa, you have to choose a flagship project. The flagship project for South Africa was artificial intelligence and blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
They do it for the continent, so we're still following that path. Even off that, in 2022, 2023, we went ahead and developed a national strategy for AI for Benin. Subsequent to that, Benin piloted the ChatGPT for Benin, which is actually working. So it is exciting news for us, but for Africa in general. And I like when Peter said human-centric approach in terms of regulation. I don't like to say AI law, because whenever I hear about law, we're in a disruptive world. So how can you put a law and you can innovate? Unless you see regulation as an enabler for the innovation. You see, because we're used to this from the telco, coming from the telco back in the 1990s, when you say, oh, we already have a regulation for AI, then what are innovation going to do? So that's my only worry. So we in Africa, we like to call it guidelines. Guideline and let it flow, sandbox it, and see exactly, and use those guidelines to actually look at the ethical approach, human approach, and so on and so forth. Be human-centric. And coming from a human-centric, it's very important to know our approach. Before AI, we all know we have, today on average, we have about 64% of the people connected, I think, people who are connected around our planet. In Africa, on average, in the world, on average, about 64%. On average, in Africa, is about 46%. So we have some people who are still unconnected. Sometimes it's due to affordability. It's due to smart devices price. It's due sometimes to local content, or sometimes cyber hygiene. How we look at AI, how the AI can help us, of course, beyond the frontier AI, which is a general purpose AI, how the AI will be able to help Africa to shrink that gap. Because people living in the rural area, for example, who do not speak English, they do not speak French, they do not speak Estonian, how would they be able to use the technology like someone who's been to school? It is a worry. And we all know fundamentally every single country in the world, you develop with the taxpayer money. It basically means you're providing services to people who are in an urban area or also in a rural area. What about if the part of the population is excluded? How can the AI can help us? And we know the big tech firm, they are not going to develop a large language module for Africa. So how are young people going to use the AI to be able to do large language module for my grandmother in the village who does not speak any other language but her native language to interact with the government services? That's why human-centric approach. I don't like to say regulation. I think we had this debate in Kenya. I like to call it guideline, because regulation sometimes is exactly it could mean anti-innovation. That's my only worry. This is beside, of course, each individual country can go ahead and go AI in health, AI in transportation, AI, of course. But if we are all working towards the SDG, which is the Sustainable Development Goal 2030, is only 6 years from now. How can we use the AI? To be honest, personally, I look at the AI as a tool you have in your pocket, which has more than 60 master's degree and a bachelor degree, period. It's a tool. Then you may ask me a question, is it a revolution or evolution? It depends. Within a certain sectorial, it's a revolution. But overall, when you look at the digital transformation, it's an evolution because not everything is AI-able. That's why we talk about use cases.
We will come to that, and I'm happy to put that question on whether the regulation should come first to Peter later, and what's the logic behind actually going that way in Europe. But Marika, do you see, what do you miss in your work? I mean, in terms of unlocking there. I mean, you see that the policymakers are still vaguely in the head in the clouds in their thing. So, what should be done so that we move forward in terms of technical work, actually getting our hands dirty? I don't know if dirty is the right word for AI.
Well, first of all, I think that I'm very rightly positioned on the stage between the regulator and actually disruptor.
Yeah.
That's radical. You think commission, but it can be sometimes. And then
can you bring the two together somehow?
And then actually Mr. Koné, who's representing a set of countries who are actually supposed to be benefiting from the GovStack approach. Yeah. So whatever I'm going to say, feel free to jump in and just correct me if I got it wrong all the way. Yes. So essentially, even though GovStack is based on this whole of government approach, and this is one of those very fancy buzzwords that everybody's using these days, hopefully I got it right, meaning that one would expect that we have a toolkit, a set of experts working on the building block for AI. For some weird reason, we don't. And I think it's got some perfect logic behind that. Because GovStack, indeed, there are at least 20-something different building blocks in different levels of maturity. Some of those are pretty new, still working on the specifications of their version 0.1, like that of Wallet, for example. EID is definitely a very hot topic these days. But rightly so, there is no set of specifications being worked on AI. Because I think the whole philosophy and the mode of operation for GovStack is actually providing the toolkits, which in a way enables the receiving country to use whatever AI tool he wishes to or chooses to. Because above all, GovStack is a very demand-driven network. Whatever we do is being based on from the philosophy that we provide the toolbox for the receiving countries willing to digitize the public services, and they can then pick and choose those tools that they find are mostly relevant to them. AI obviously is a horizontal approach. GovStack doesn't advocate any specific AI tools or AI platforms.
Because should we do open source? Let the people work on a standard. The dedicated community that's so familiar with the.
Obviously, yes. And GovStack, from that perspective, is product agnostic. We don't advocate any specific open or closed source products. For that matter, but what our fundamental value we bring is the set of, let's say, functional requirement descriptions. Obviously, when we bring along a couple of hundreds experts across the world, they need to work out the specifications based on their relevant experience, coming either from Africa and bringing, or Europe or other parts of the world, bringing in their in-house experience. And this, at the end of the day, will be summarized in this set of specifications for any of those building blocks that then receiving countries can deploy by then choosing from the set of solutions that have been like GovStack compatible. But yes, obviously, open source is one of the, let's say, foundational principles that GovStack was based upon, which is very close to our hearts. But today, as I understand, it's not so black and white anymore.
If I
yeah.
can jump in, we have to avoid the perception of AI being like a duck. It can fly right, it can walk right, it can swim right. A duck. Have you seen duck walking?
We have a saying in Estonia: if it walks like a duck, if it's talk like a duck, if it's quack like a duck, it's probably FSB. Sorry.
So, if the AI is out there, I think if we can explore further where the GovStack will be meeting the AI use cases for the humanity, because GovStack is about putting a DPI in place for countries. For whom? Citizen. To do what? Service. Public service.
Yes.
Is that correct? So how the AI will be able to contribute into the proliferation or the higher penetration of that will be good for humanity. I know AI can be used for harm, weapons, and all of that, but we're not going to go into this. Let's go to the low-hanging fruit. Here's the young continent, Africa. We are in the middle of a digital transformation. We had a metaverse, we had a blockchain, now we have AI. We're going to have something else.
In Africa, you see, these are all in the past already. Metaverse.
Well, yeah, because, yeah. And you also have to realize that we are a mobile-first continent.
Which is
I hear a lot of intervene, here in the panel. You have your ID card, you would like to do a service in Estonia, you have your laptop, you plug in. We don't have a slot in our laptops. We don't. But if you shoot it to me, it's been 2 years, I've never used a cash. I've never used a credit card in 2 years. I use a mobile for any payment. So if we want to take that and adapt to our context, so we need to look exactly, our fight and our goal, our target has been how we can actually enter the urban, rural area to have a service, because it's not a how they call this, sub-zero game, like certain society level need to have a digital access. What about the others? No, because if we continue from AI to another technology, indeed what we are doing, we're actually widening the gap. So whatever technology is coming, how we can use it to shrink in the gap as we are moving along. And we truly believe AI will be fascinating, will be the fastest path to have to actually cheetah leap, not to leapfrog, because leapfrog is actually old. We call it not cheetah leap.
But should we ask people, because there was also, since you said frog, and there is this famous saying that who asked, draining the swamp, who will ask the frogs? And of course, we are now having a conversation about the AI. I don't know if that's actually relevant, because things are changing so much, and actually you brought the attention to the right sort of question, because we have only been talking the means, not the ends. The mean is law is a means to an end, market, technology, these are means to an end. A stack is a means to an end, but to what end? So you have generated an AI Act, which generates, I think, a market of 450 million people. So we used to have 27 member states. Now, at least in AI usage in Europe, there will be one single set of rule over 500 million people. So this is something that, but to what end, Peter?
All right. No, thanks. I think I would like to come back to this metaphor of the which I stole from this other person a few days ago, of which path to follow. And the way he put it was like, the path in the middle is the right path, and he related to some philosophies, but also if you walk over the mountain ridge, that maybe you want to walk on the top of the mountain and not on the left or the right, or either side. And as he said it, or today, in other words, you can look at big tech or big states. And so I come back to that. So to what end? So if you look at the digital transformation today, many people put it in that way, right? You have a big state on the one hand, you have big tech, and we want to find the right path in the middle. And I think that's the end. It's like to make sure we get the benefits and we minimize the risks. Now, I agree with what Lacina said. Let's not focus only on the, all these bad stories. There are so many good stories. It's true. But then what I would say, and this is to pick up on a previous question that you threw in there before, is like, does this work? Regulation, this and that. So I think there's three things. One is, okay, what do you like? What are the alternatives? Do we want to go for big state? Do we want to go for big tech? Or do we find a middle way? I think obviously we're finding the middle way. This is the same thing with the Digital Markets Act, where we want to reduce monopolies and where we want to spur startups and smaller entities, taking into account, of course, that we have big tech over there, which is so dominant already in Europe, in Africa. And if nothing is done, why would they stop? But it's not anti-big tech. It's just to find a way where we find, which we prefer. So that's the first. Second, can regulation, or to just use that word, be agile? It's certainly the intention of the colleagues who worked on the AI Act. I'm not a big expert on those things, but I know they've followed a new approach, which is called the new legislative framework, which is supposed to bring more agile legislation. And for example, the AI Act sets principles. It doesn't go into all the technical specifications of how actors necessarily have to behave. It sets the principles, and then part of that is to be translated in standards. And these standards will be developed by standard-setting bodies. And they can be adapted over time more easily than just adapting the legislation, which has set the principles. Same is to be more technical, not more technical, but another technicality is that part of the AI Act can be implemented through delegated acts. So that's a lower level of setting rules, which is more agile. And so, just to say, everybody I think agrees probably that things happen in the market, in industry, and then academia and policy probably follow. So I'm not disputing that. Nevertheless, you can do it in a smart way. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the idea, and I am a firm believer of that, and it makes me think of when I was in high school, little anecdote, statistics, professor said, the most practical thing you can have is a good theory. And he didn't mean, of course, a story. He meant, rules, axiomas, proof.
This is what you get in university usually.
Yeah, but
make a better theory.
Yes. But he said that's the most practical thing there is, because then you can work. And I think this to translate that a bit in the AI Act is that I do believe a good set of a good framework creates stability. And then that's the hope, should spur investment and innovation. And AI.
Do you believe that it happens itself? Some while ago we were promised flying cars, or self-driving, or solving cancer, or Parkinson's, or personalized medicine, that I will get something very personalized when I go to pharmacy. Are we going to get any of that after the AI Act?
So, I don't think we've promised those things, but I do think that.
Have you read Ursula von der Leyen's latest platform? Sorry.
Okay.
Are we going to get there? Are we working on solving any of those problems?
I'm sure. In that direction, I'm sure. I mean, self-driving cars to some extent are there. AI-driven support for health is there with all the risks. That's why the AI Act is risk-based. But there are so many things that are in development that are there already in your phone today.
I'm using my phone as my external memory. I'm becoming more stupid and stupid because I get external energy, external memory, external everything, and my IQ is going down. That's one of the promises of digital. But I also used OpenAI to ask this question too. What does the machine think of it? And I'm coming to you, Marika. And the first thing the OpenAI ChatGPT told that we should work on the data standards, so that the machine, I don't know if the machine took care of its own needs. I mean, perhaps. But it said that this is something we should be working first, as the first order of things. Are we? Are you going to give us data standards?
I'm not an expert on data standards. I never want to become one.
But you will bring the people together, no?
The thing is that. Above all, GovStack is a reference project, a global attempt, let's put it that way, to put all these beautiful ideas into actual practice. And it's a two-way road that we also feed in expertise and experience from those regions and countries who are actually implementing this approach. So it is in a way a very practical tool. And even though we like to think that we are perfectly technology and product neutral, we don't advocate any of the big tech companies, we don't advocate any particular regional preferences. Above all, GovStack is based on some very foundational principles that apply to privacy and all the nice things that Peter was just talking about. So it's a tool, above all, to create a level playing field, and above all, to enable the governments who are deploying this platform to provide them kind of a safe sandbox kind of playground where they can build their POCs in a trusted and secure way, because it would be a huge risk to start deploying any of those building blocks on their whole portfolio of services. That would be massively risky also in terms of in-house capacity and the skills available, because we are talking about regions that perhaps don't have such a decades-long experience with digital tools and digitizing the public services. So yes, we are keeping GovStack and its members obviously are keeping a very close eye on how the regulators are acting, particularly in EU, because whether we speak of the recently adopted AI Act or the IDAS 2 regulation, which is going to have a huge impact how the world will understand how digital identity would work in perfectly, at least in theory, interoperable continent of 27 member states. If this is something that could be deployed in Africa, maybe we fail big time, so give us some time to actually make it work. So it's from the Estonia and Germany as EU member states, we are in a position of huge responsibility, because on the one hand, we have been hands-on on setting up the regulatory framework. On the other hand, we are now part of this beautiful network of very hands-on practical toolkits, which are based on this very same regulatory principles, which are becoming standards one way or the other on a global scale. And yes, that is the kind of still work ongoing, because this is the kind of experience that feeds into the working groups of different building blocks and specifications. Which is an ongoing process, because the main effort is to keep those specifications up to date, to feed back in, as I said, the very hands-on experience from those countries who've been deploying it, and making them up to date for the newcomers into the network. But it's a huge responsibility, because being a global platform, as GovStack is, we bring in very diverse partners, obviously with sometimes very different interests, but we're trying to establish the level playing field, keeping in mind above all the interests of those receiving countries willing to deploy those toolkits.
Well, UN is trying to do that as well and see how's it going currently. But you perfectly managed to evade the question, of course, which is a good work of diplomacy. But nevertheless, going to you, Lacina, I mean, going around, of course, in this museum, you see a lot of the kind of, what Estonia has been through the ages and etc. But you also see how we also missed out on a lot of revolutions and technologies, etc. throughout the ages. We used to be a rather poor country, also colonialized as a country. So there is, of course, I mean, looking at the COVID experience, how the poorer part and the richer part, and it was based on technology. Technology actually supplied the new ways of vaccines, and I think we had the means actually of producing them at scale, but we didn't. So we are in the midst of technological revolutions. You already said that your mother should be able to benefit.
Of course.
Yesterday you said that the most important thing is to have the kind of a trusted framework and et cetera, to work on. Yeah. So in Africa, where should you work? I mean, in Estonia, we recognize that language technology is something important, that we should be there. If machine learns, if, I don't know, Google queries, there should be an Estonian interface into it, and there's quite an effort to language technologies. Is language technology we should be working first, of bringing more people along with the revolution, or just leaving them behind, seeing that one day some private sector folk, perhaps, if there are a few million people, of course he does that, and the market, what should we work first? I mean,
it's let's avoid being a snake that bites his own tail. I call it sometimes rat race, the rat race. What I was telling you is really the priority we should be working on. And I'm going to be here bold again like yesterday. Chinese do not need to learn English to be where they are. Even if you order Chinese equipment, the manual comes in Chinese. It's a technology equipment. So technology has no language. It has skills you apply to the local context. In that sense, for us, it's very important to bring everyone on board, because as we are moving in this fast lane from technology to today's AI, generative AI, we're actually widening the gap that we've been working with most of our partners in the EU, even in Estonia, in Germany, to be able to shrink that gap. So let AI be used for human cause, for a certain cause, and not be too excited about it. And that's what I said yesterday. And coming to Africa, for us to succeed, trust. I hear trust here in the morning a lot of time. The difference between you and I, in your wallet, you're using an OPM, other people's money. Your card, Visa card, is not your money.
It's credit.
It's credit because they trust you. The difference between me, myself, the Visa card I have, is the cold cash at the bank. That's the difference between trust economy and the truth economy. Global North, they live in a trust economy. People are identified, authenticated. The government knows them, private sector knows them, and so on and so forth. They trust them with loan. In Africa, there's no KYC. It's me and my bank. Where do I live? Some of the countries do not even have a proper addressing. That's why we live in a truth economy. Whatever you spend, it's the cold cash. It is not OPM. It's not other people's money. So for us to be able to get into a country cannot be built based on the truth economy. We have to move into a trust economy. With the digital ID, interoperable ID, digital platform, and so on and so forth. Then make it citizen-centric, because it doesn't matter what we develop. If you put the citizen at the center, he either get the public service or he get the private service. But based on what? His ID, gmail.com or Yahoo? It belongs to America. That's why we are under control. We are all colonized here. When you wake up this morning, well, how do you communicate with me? What's up? Where is your data stored? The danger 5 years from now with the AI, it is the same takeover of the world by the big tech firm.
All right. Time is counting. We have 4 minutes. And as I promised at the beginning, there is a possibility to co-create. And we have a question. So I'll skip my final question and put this to you finally, so we have everyone a little bit less than 1 minute. What are the concrete cases where you are using AI in digital public goods? Can you count it? Are you using AI already in your work? And for what?
As DG INTPA or as an...
As privately, as if you want to, but more, of course, officially.
Where are we using AI? Okay. Within different commission DGs, there's multiple programs ongoing using AI, including for our knowledge management, document creation, even briefings being created, and there's multiple exercises going on. Outside, I would just get back to the example of the Copernicus Earth observation data, which has multiple use cases, and you need data management, including machine learning and AI, to do that in useful ways.
I forgot to also mention that I think Ursula von der Leyen promised that HPC, the high-powered computing, will be available to European companies that work. So the computing power will be shared and federated in the country, so you can cross the access barriers to it. But Europe also has more than 20 national languages as its official languages, so everything is translated. So it's one of the largest bodies of digitized language bodies there is, so you can do a lot on that basis, and we are happy that Estonia is one part of them, because Estonian language is now not the kitchen language anymore. It's one of the most, which is true, which is one of the most advanced languages. Every standard in Europe has to be in Estonian. So this is quite some difference from where your mother might be. So your application, should we work on a killer app? Do you use AI already in your...
AI for policy harmonization.
Yeah.
we are into a policy harmonization, which means data protection law in Mauritania has to be conformed with that of Cameroon, with that of Gabon, and Smart Africa is sitting in the middle of this because we need to harmonize policy. The AI today help us. You load up all this different policy because each policy data protection, for example, may be 150 to 300 pages. Are you going to go line by line? You submit it to the AI. It tells you what's the common denominator. Already in your back of your hand, your head, you know what are the criteria which can make a country conducive. As I said in the beginning, regulation and policy can make or kill a nation. So when you have those criteria, how to create a conducive environment, then the AI will take care of the policy harmonization. You know exactly which country to target to change what clauses exactly.
The one thing we should not do, learning from the Chinese and the Japanese, is to make a rule to shut ourselves down from the rest of the world, because this is what they did, and this is how they were left behind in the few centuries. But now they're back. So Marika, what standards, what do you use AI for?
You always want to talk about standards, but I think that's...
But you are a standards person. So.
No, of course I'm not. Actually, my predecessor in my position as a GovStack lead for Estonia came up, at least during his time, there's a very practical toolkit in there floating around that how we can deploy machine learning for code writing based on the specifications. I absolutely love the simplicity of the idea because this is a very practical approach which actually creates lots of value for the end users of those specifications, building services on those. And I think that's about it. Start from scratch, from some very practical applications, even though that the whole building blocks approach creates several opportunities for the application of AI, because as you rightly said, some fundamental DPI items need to be put in place, like secure, safe identity, data exchange, etc. So then you can play around whichever way you want.
Thank you very much. The clock is red, the time is up. You have been very patient. So let's give a hand to our debatants, and they will be available, so please touch base with them. So,
thank you.